Hey, welcome back everyone, and wait, we're reviewing what? Today we'll be taking a look at the EOTech NV Clip-On LR Night Vision. How in the world did we end up with this? Guess we'll just get started. So I joke, the folks over at EOTech were actually nice enough to let us borrow this night vision device. So big thanks over to EOTech for letting us show this off to you and bring it to some of our viewers. And you'll also see me use this more when I test out a slew of other IR illuminators in the future, and then maybe even some secret sauce from US Night Vision. And I'm definitely excited to see what the new version of their illuminator does in those tests, I'll tell you that. But first off, let's start by talking about what the heck the EOTech Clip-On NVLR is, so that we can communicate in some of the same language. The Clip-On NV is a tier of night vision clip-on optics that connects into your scope to give the user night vision functionality to their own scope or current optic system. There are currently two different optics with the Clip-On NV and the Clip-On NVLR. The LR stands for long range and gives you some additional magnification over the standard Clip-On NV. Additionally, the Clip-On NV, the regular one, has a shorter focus and can provide a sharp image at distances less than 10 meters, while the LR can't really focus less than 20 meters. And it's really just a physics problem. If you're going to get more optical range, then you're going to lose out on some of the shorter focus. It's just how it works. The standard Clip-On NV is more designed for your 3 to 4x optics, such as your ACOGs or LCAN Spectres. Okay, who in the world's gonna want an LCAN over an ACOG? Not me. Let's just say ACOGs and just get this lazy Susan option out of here. The Clip-On NV LR is designed for optics higher than 6 times magnification. And we'll play with it and see kind of where the limit is, like how much is too much magnification. But the way the unit works is what it does is it actually takes in all the surrounding light and then just amplifies it. So the difference between the NV and the NVLR is just the LR is just a bigger unit that's going to be taking in more light. Small note, that amplification can do some weird things, and we'll talk about it when we test everything out. Now, I think it's really crucial that you understand some basics of night vision and engagement ranges so that the numbers I'm going to give you have some sort of context into the whole night vision world. And I'll link to a really great video BrassFacts did on this subject, as he does a really good job of explaining the various illumination conditions you'll encounter and how the conditions really define what you can see and just how far you can see. And you may think an illuminator always helps, but as we saw in our plate carrier footage, if it's super dark and you just plow this massive illuminator, you may get auto-gating, and now the surrounding area of the light gets even darker. And here you can see some examples of different environments with the snow footage on the left and dry ground on the right, and you can see how the natural light and illuminators react very differently. So, for the sake of simplicity and not wanting to repeat BrassFacts for the next hour, let's just say that the standard engagement and identification range is about 100 yards. Oh no, now we kind of have to define what identification means. No, we don't have time for that. Let's just assume that at 100 yards, you can reasonably tell if someone is a friend or a foe and just leave it at that. First though, let's go into the actual Clip-On NV device itself and go over the whole unit and all the different functionality of it. Alright, so here's the actual EOTech ClipNV LR. There's a lot of different features on this device actually. I kind of want to go over it all. Like how on the side here is the majority of the controls and like the battery compartment, but we'll go over all the different bits and how it all functions. I think the first thing we should start on is kind of the far end where we have this rubber cap over the eyepiece. Let me just see if I can remove this here. This is kind of no frills, like there's nothing really spectacular happening here, but you can see it's pretty beefed up, so you know, if you drop this or hit it on something, it's not just going to shatter, so it's nice to see that. But we can just put this cap back on here. I'm going to show you more functions. So where should we start first? Okay, I guess we'll go over here. On the side of it is this Picatinny rail. Now, I don't know why this didn't dawn on me to just put my illuminators on the side here instead of using that weird CAC diving board thing, but I don't know, I just didn't think about that. Then we have an actual release lever here. You see how it just flips over to the side, but then it locks in place unless you actually lift up on it. So it'll stay here nice and sturdy, but if you lift up on it, it'll just loosen easily. So it's easy to connect into your whole system. Then we have the actual battery compartment here. This is super simple because it's marked with a positive and a negative, so it's very hard for you to get confused. You just remove this cap and then you can insert your battery in the proper orientation. Now, you could just put your cap on, but I want to test some more things and I don't want to accidentally turn this thing on, so I'm going to take this out. But then I'll just put our cap back on, and I don't usually leave it stored with the battery in there. Now, on the top here is the actual master control knob. What this does is two different things. Number one, it controls the brightness of the actual night vision device, and I'll show that when we actually test it out. And then you can turn it on by holding it down for 3 seconds or turn it off the same way. So that 3-second hold turns it on and off. Now, I want you to be aware of this. The focusing knob is on the top, so I want you to think of this like parallax. You have to focus the night vision image so it comes into focus into what you're looking at, and it's kind of hard to get it perfect on footage, but we'll do our best. But you need to be aware you have to adjust that. So also remember that as you have the optic way out in front of you, you need to be able to reach forward and adjust the actual focus pretty finely, and I had a lot of trouble doing that when on the actual firearm, so be aware of that. Then we have the cover of the clip-on NV, and you can lift it up or down, which is nice, but you need to be able to keep this on during the day to protect the actual night vision device. And if you want to kind of know how it works, here you're starting to see some of it where it's taking in some of that extra light and bouncing it around inside, so it's actually making it way more amplified to be able to be seen brighter by the night vision device. So that's all the bits of the actual unit and how to operate it. Now remember though, the clip-on NV operates extremely similar to standard night vision. So if you flip up the cap with the sun out, you're absolutely going to damage the unit, just like you would with standard PVS 14s. And I've seen some of these questions, so no, it wouldn't work well in like dusk or sun coming down conditions. There would probably be too much light and you would likely damage the unit. Now, before we actually do all the nighttime testing, let me show you how I have it all connected up so you have some sort of reference to what the heck I'm talking about. I used our long-range optics testing setup that had our ZeroTech Trace Advanced 3-18 on it, due to that scope having some of the best image quality to remove that variable in all the testing. Now, one small but important note. There are like 3 or 4 different optical planes at play here between the recording device, the night vision device, the scope, and all those different pieces. So don't harp too much on image fidelity, but I did try as hard as I could to try to achieve like the best image quality that I could get and record. I also used the CAC Industries scope mount with their diving board whatever thing to attach in our D-Ball D2 to test illuminator function also. And I don't know why, but the CAC scope mount that I have is the only one that has the screws rusting after like 2 weeks of usage. Oh, I absolutely love that. All right, so now you know all about the unit, how it works, and how I have it all set up. So let's actually do some functionality testing. We'll wait till it's dark out and see what this NVLR can do. I'm just gonna do it like Mystery Science Theater 3000 style and just go over the footage with you as we watch it. So let's roll it. All right, let's look at this thing together. Looks like now, okay, so we have no illuminator, we have no laser, no nothing. I am noticing a little bit of that halo blooming. You see that? You're gonna notice that more and more as we go, just the way the device actually amplifies light. And you can see that tree out there, that's at about 550 yards. And so here I start adjusting the actual like master control knob. So you can see the changes in illumination if you wanted to, tone it down, make it brighter. It does auto gate, so I never really messed with this besides this. It was really sensitive though, so it goes from like fully bright to nothing in seconds. All right, next let's actually mess with the magnification. So we're at like 3x. So they were at like 6x. The image is getting pretty grainy. It's pretty hard to focus it. Here we move up to 12. I don't think that's usable. I can't really tell what that is. That like sweet spot is kind of like that 8 to 10 range, I think, or kind of the 6. I definitely moved it back though so we can see some different stuff. Now here we have our illuminator. Now I have it on full blast and you can see it makes a good bit of difference now. And if we zoom in a little, maybe it's not too much. Okay, just get enough zoom here. And let's see if we can turn that illuminator back on. Okay, see, so then that starts to really lighten things up, but it doesn't really help to define things. And that's where you need to remember, okay, if you zoom way in, I don't think that helps at all either. But you need to remember that you really have like that 1x image like we're seeing on a lot of the thermal optics that you're just zooming in on. Looking here in my yard, we can kind of see what it's like to look at some closer things. So here I have this just bush. This is probably at like 25 yards from my house. And then kind of the woods behind the house. It's a little bit more challenging to use this optic this close. And again, see that like ring? That's due to the actual device amplifying the light, but it not being focused at that distance. So you're going to see that a lot if you don't focus in. Now, here is my neighbor's yard. This is about 100, 150 yards. So if you look over on their deck, we can see pretty well. I'm kind of surprised we can see that that's a grill. There's some patio furniture. I can see a fence back there. I can see a lot of debris here. I'm pretty surprised how well I can see through the actual optic here, and like the sheer amount of detail I have just telling exactly what things are. It's pretty impressive. Looking in my yard here, I'm trying to see what I can see. Oh, there's some bunnies. It's pretty interesting what you can find at night. If you wait, is he missing an eye? Oh, what's wrong? Oh, that's gruesome. Okay, that's enough of this footage. No. Oh, he's definitely missing an eye. Okay, let's move on. Yep, let's go. I think doing this test, one of the most interesting things that I learned was kind of that sweet spot for magnification. I found it really does well in kind of that 3 to 6 magnification range. I mean, I guess you could push to like 8 or 10 magnification, but beyond that, the image starts to get just like really, really grainy. I'd also say that the identification range is about 400 yards if I want to be really generous. But tell you what, let's kind of compare how this is, like if that 400 yards, identification range is substantial or not. Let's compare it against some PVS 14s. First, let me show you how I have my 14 set up and how I'm able to record off of those. Here I used a Brown Bear optical recording device as it makes an extremely clear picture. It does add a bit of bulk to the overall system though. But it doesn't make the smash turd of an image that you get out of that unobtainium AVRS. ANV? ANRS. Whatever, that thing is awful, don't buy that. The Brown Bear also requires power, so hooked everything into a Dark Energy Poseidon Pro power bank that I can slide into the side of my plate carrier. And a bit unrelated, but power solutions should be something you're thinking about when you're putting your whole kit together. But let's go test out the functionality of the clip-on NVLR versus PVS 14s and kind of see how those work side by side. Now let's do that tree view again. On the left we have the ClipNV LR, and on the right we have our PVS 14s. Now I'm shining the illuminator on the tree in both images, and on the right you can barely even make that out. Like you can probably see it at home, but that would be a pain. But look at the difference with the illuminator here. Like on the 14s, you notice you're shining like a light, but on the actual clip-on, you can see everything being illuminated. There is a massive difference in the effectiveness of the actual illuminator. I don't think it's very effective on the PVS 14s at that distance. You're far beyond the distance you can use that at. Even if you can shoot that far, or shoot that far with the illuminator, you can't use that. You'd just be shooting at blobs at that point, where at least with the clip-on, you'd have some sort of idea as to what it is to know if that's a tree or not. On the right view, I can't even tell that's a tree. Okay, moving to the backyard view, shining that with the 14s on the deck, I don't know if that helps at all. On the left side, it definitely gives some more fidelity into what I'm looking at. If we go full power, I can't see anything with the 14s, but then with the clip-on, I can zoom in, see a bunch more details. The 14s, it's just really bright. I think that's way too bright of an illuminator. Looking around too, you can kind of see the different details in the backyard. I can't see a whole lot with the 14s, where with the clip-on, I can see the fence. I can see some different lines back there. I can see these shingles on this roof. There's just way more detail to be seen, and I can make out a lot more things in the night. And I think most of this footage is just showing a lot of the same thing, but if you want to see more of a comparison of like the view you're going to get at 200 yards in comparison, from 14s to the ClipNV, this is really going to tell it to you as to, the view and the functionality you're going to get. Okay, now one big difference is going to be close range though. So close with the 14s is pretty effective, even if that illuminator is just way too bright. But you can see I'm almost too zoomed in with the ClipNV, and Yeah, I can see some details on some things, but it's almost like a little too laser focused to be able to maintain a field of view of actual things going on. So close inside of 30 yards, I really do want the 14s. And watching this footage with you, I really have one big takeaway, and that's that you have almost 4 times the engagement and identification range of the PVS 14s. You're really going from 100 yards to like 400 yards. Now, I'm sure there's some of you out there that may be saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I can easily see them targets with my PVS 14s and engage them at 400 yards with no problem. In the world of night vision, it's just very different unless you're just going to go on a murder spree just shooting at random shapes. It's very, very valuable to be able to identify friend or foe at 4 times the distance than you can with standard PVS 14s. Now, though, let's be honest, if you have this, you probably also want your team to have thermals so you can identify targets at even longer ranges. At this point, you probably have like $50,000 or $60,000 wrapped up in night vision and thermal optics. And talking to Brass Facts about this, we both laughed because we kind of said to each other, at this point, why in the world would you be the one out in the field? Just hire some mercenaries and let them go sort it out. That would be way easier. But let's talk pros and cons, and the first big pro is that improved engagement distance. By moving to the clip-on NVLR, your ability to identify and engage what you're looking at increases substantially from the standard view of PVS 14s. This allows the user far more functionality in the field in low light conditions. And it's a clip-on, which segues into our next huge pro, is that it gives night vision functionality to your current optic setup. That means you can use the reticle system you want and prefer and convert it into a full night vision setup, meaning you can have the same daytime optic and reticle and then swap over to the NVLR for nighttime use. And then there's no swapping uppers or any of that stupid mess. You just use the optic that you're familiar with. Now, let's talk about one more absolutely huge pro. You could zoom in on night vision. The ability to zoom in on our target in night vision means we can look closer at targets, and the illuminator can be far more effective at highlighting details on a target when we're able to see the image more precisely. Now, can you see as far as you can with the regular scope? Well, no. And for context, this Trace Advanced scope can read a 10 by 12 sign at 500 yards, but can barely make out a tree at the same distance in night vision. And I think that's a good segue into some of the cons I found, but the first big con I want to talk about is the size and weight. EOTech lists the weight of this guy at 2.2 pounds. With our over-engineered and rusting CAC mount and D-ball D2 and clip-on NV, along with our silencer and other attachments, this made our long-range setup so stupidly heavy that it would be impossible to lug around the field. Now, I had to send it back, but that setup had to be like 15 to 17 pounds fully loaded. Now, I really should have weighed it, but even lugging it around to do just some of the various testing I was doing, it was hilariously heavy. Now, one more odd con that some of you may or may not have noticed when we're looking through the footage is that it does particularly poorly when looking into or out of any brush. And this is mostly a physics problem, but here you can see it. There is a clearing through these trees, but once I turn on the illuminator, the trees and brush reflect back so much light that it auto-gates the device. The IR laser can still penetrate, but you can't illuminate what is at the distance further out. And yes, that is way more of a night vision problem than a EOTech ClipNV LR problem. But I want you to be aware of it when you're thinking about using this when looking into or out of like foliage or woods or something. But then thinking about that, I don't really want to sit in an open field with a big 17-pound mess either. So then what do I think about the clip-on NVLR at its current price point? The EOTech clip-on is a piece of equipment that makes a team radically more effective in night vision operations. Teams that operate at night absolutely need this bit of gear to literally multiply their engagement capability. Having night vision you can clip onto your scope and then see and engage at 400 yards is a game changer in the night vision arena. All right, but pause. I'm gonna put on my civilian hat. Do I recommend it for the rest of us? Well, no. The clip-on NV augments a team, and it augments a team that generally operates at night. Will this make you more effective to add 2 to 5 more pounds to your gun to give you 300 more yards of engagement nighttime distance? Well, no, I don't recommend that to you, and I don't think you're gonna wanna pay $10,000 for that functionality either. But for those people who need that functionality, it is an absolute must. So then you may ask me, okay, then what do you recommend for the average Joe that isn't really running in like a professional team or doing it law enforcement or whatever? And I really recommend you look at some thermal optics and thermal clip-ons. These offer some insane functionality and identification capability while still giving you the same ability to use your own sighting system and reticle with a similar engagement range as we see on this clip-on NVLR. But I did want to say a big thanks to EOTech. It's just amazingly cool to be able to show off some of like the highest tier of gear out that's on the market, even if it doesn't apply to some of us out there. But make sure to send EOTech some love and check out their page on eotechinc.com if you want some more information on the clip-ons or other optics that they offer. And I do really like that EOTech G45 magnifier. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was kind of surprised I like it as much as I do. But I hope this review of the EOTech NVLR was helpful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon and YouTube members. As I always say, you're the ones that make all this cool stuff possible, and I truly appreciate your support. And I want to say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below when you're going to purchase your NVLR night vision. All right, everyone, we'll all shout. It's airplanes. It's always airplanes. It's always airplanes. Airplanes, airplanes, airplanes. All right, let's keep going. I really do need to get dual tubes one day. So let me know what you guys recommend. It's gonna be expensive. All right, thanks.